This is being reported in the New York Post, and this is the man that police have in custody. So this is a face to the name of this 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh. So there you have it. James, I want to talk about rhetoric for a moment.
Yeah.
Do you think rhetoric from the Democrats leads to this incitement against Donald Trump, or is it just the tone and tenor of debate in the US at the moment, which has been heading this way for quite some years?
Well, Laura, it's a really interesting question here, and I'm really loath to blame rhetoric per se for inspiring people to violent acts. People who commit violent acts, are ultimately responsible for their violent acts. I don't subscribe to, that idea that words necessarily are violence, because, of course, that leads to all sorts of things where people want to restrict speech on the basis of protecting, people from violence. But what I will say is that when it comes to political violence, the left likes to act in the United States and elsewhere like they have clean hands on this. But I mean, if anybody who lived through the 2020 riots around BLM and Antifa, know that violence is very much a feature of left-wing politics. And I know people will say, oh, well, January 6th too, and that's fine. You can say that. But what I do think is appalling is that some outlets, such as MSNBC in the U.S., have tried to somehow say that this is Trump's fault for his own rhetoric. And, this is just appalling here. The thing is, there's a lot of questions that we need answers on. One thing that I would love to know, Laura, is how did this individual, this alleged would-be assassin, and I'm saying alleged, but how did he know that the former president would be playing Trump at that time, at that place? I mean, I think there's questions that need to be answered and investigated here. I'm not suggesting a conspiracy, but I do think we need to know answers to these questions going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. And often what these cases can come about, what can happen in the days where this is investigated, is that I think the Secret Service has a hell of a job ahead of them to be able to track and know all the threats against Donald Trump. I mean, 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh, does he fit into the profile of hundreds of other people that might be upset with Donald Trump? And when you talk about rhetoric, I mean, it was just a couple of hours ago that Donald Trump tweeted, "I hate Taylor Swift." I mean, I'm not saying that's incitement, but, I'm talking about the tone of things in America. The tone of political debate in America has been diabolical for years, and Trump is a part of that.
Well, sure, but I mean, if we find out that this Routh fellow was a Swiftie, then, maybe there's, something to that tweet. But to be serious about it for a moment, though, I just, I think that we have to be really, really careful about saying that, we need to be careful about our words because people might do the wrong thing. Well, people who do the wrong thing, will do the wrong thing for whatever reason.
Oh, I agree with
and
you.
I would love to see it. I would love to see, look, I would love to see, Laura, I would love that, we would go to revert to sort of the, high-minded days of the Lincoln-Douglas debates in America. But I also remember that, the tone of rhetoric in U.S. politics, I mean, go back to some of the presidential campaigns in the early 1800s, they make Donald Trump look like Emily Post when it comes to polite rhetoric. So, we should also have a little bit of historical perspective here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, thinking about guys like John McCain, who, was able to overcome that. And, in the political debates, he kept it kind of highbrow and classy when talking about his opponent, not getting to that, absolute base level. But, James, before I let you go, let's talk about how this might change the campaign. I mean, Donald Trump is really defiant here. You would expect that. We didn't see a fist pump today, but I think one's just around the corner, metaphorical or physical. And he sent out a note to all of his supporters saying that he is fine. And really wanted to dial this down. But Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, he never misses an opportunity and obviously wants this story to be something that sees millions of dollars more in donations come his way.
Well, look, I mean, that's Of course, he wants people to know that somebody has taken a shot at him, because an awful lot of the media, I predict, will try and squelch this story, will try and, squelch the stories that are starting to come out that if they are true, show that the alleged would-be shooter was somebody with strong far-left, pro-Palestine, pro-BLM, pro-Bernie Sanders type positions, just as there was a Bernie bro who tried to shoot a bunch of Republican congressmen back in, I think, 2016. These stories have a way of disappearing when they don't fit the narrative. And so obviously, Donald Trump and his supporters will be doing everything they can to make sure people know exactly what is going on here, because otherwise, there's an awful lot of elements in the press that see their job right now as getting Kamala Harris elected and not at gatekeeping the truth and not telling people the truth about what's actually going and letting them make up their own minds.
It's got to rattle him, doesn't it? I mean, second attempt in as many months. The rules of engagement have changed with Kamala. I think we can agree that he hasn't quite got that mojo back when you look at the performance of the last debate. This has got to be affecting him and his psyche.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, anybody who's getting shot at this many times, is certainly, I would imagine it would rattle him out. I've never been shot at myself, but the day ain't over yet. Of course it would rattle him. We have seen a more defiant Trump since that debate. And, if you look at some of the rallies that he's held recently in Arizona, people are saying, wow, the old Trump is back. I think that 3-on-1 sort of debate performance that they had the other night just wasn't his sort of format.
Yeah, I think you're right there, James. Looking forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate you joining AM Agenda.
Anytime, Laura.